Welcome to the Wisdom and Wilderness Podcast. Real men, real life, real faith. The newest podcast for men with your host, Mitch London.
All right. Welcome to the Wisdom and Wilderness Podcast, Real Men, Real Life, and Real Faith. And we are talking with a real dude, a regular dude, as he calls himself all the time. Michael, I am so honored to have you here. You are an incredible guy, and we've actually connected not too long ago, but it was just, again, that quote-unquote realness that really spoke to me, willingness to reach out, to talk to people. You've got so many different hats that you're wearing. Today, if you can watch us on the video on the YouTube, he's wearing his 5-figure work week hat. It's one of the big focuses is helping people achieve success in business and help have those 5-figure work weeks, not months, not couple of months, weeks. And you coach, you mentor, you speak, you're all over the place. Every time I open up Facebook or LinkedIn, you're somewhere new doing something awesome with somebody. So Michael, thank you for coming. Just introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are as the real regular dude.
Dude, I love this. Well, first of all, Mitch, man, I'm looking forward to dropping some things here. When you start talking about the realness behind what all this stuff looks like, that's really appealing because I think now more than ever, there's too many, what we were just chatting about before we hit record, there's too many, there's the social media version, there's the external version. Mm-hmm. And I get all that, right? But at the same time, there's the person, there's us as men, and we deal with some things, and so I'm looking forward to just getting real about life. I think that's the only way we can connect as humans, and so I'm super pumped for this. That intro, dude, can you keep going? That was a good intro.
I'm available as a hype man,
Okay.
I come on stage.
Okay, you send me your rate sheet. I do a lot of coaching and mentoring. Again, it stems from the fact that I've been through some stuff, both personally, in my life and professionally. I failed a ton. I've learned a lot. I've figured some things out. And so I like to share as much as I can, as relevantly as possible. I'm a dad to a currently 7-year-old going on 27-year-old. She's super, super smart, to the max. She's, she gets that from one of her parents. I don't know which one, but let's see. I live in Utah currently. We have I'm literally staring at the most amazing mountains, the best snow on earth, as they say. So outdoors, I love being outdoors. I'm originally from Chicago, so I'm kind of a city boy. I'm not like your traditional, manly man, but I kind of am. So it's kind of this weird mix. Well, I'm sure we'll dive into some interesting things with that, but yeah, just a regular dude. I've been dating my girlfriend for just about a year now, going super, super well. We kind of push each other really healthfully. It's not like the negative tear down, but it's like a really positive, push your ass into the next level kind of thing.
That's been fun to watch, really by the way. That's been that's been fun to watch, just through the social media posts, but that's been really neat to kind of watch progress. And
that's cool. Yeah, no, it's fun. It's good. But even in relationships, man, it's crazy. We could dive into so many cool things here. It's I didn't start really attracting good quality people into my life until I started to put in some time and effort on myself. So that's been really cool. But yeah, I mean, more or less, I love speaking. Last October, just a few months back, I hit 200 days on stage.
Wow, that's incredible.
Which is crazy. When you watch this episode, you're going to be like, why this guy? Well, maybe not, but you're going to be confused about a few things. But I've been able to share the stage with people like Damon John from Shark Tank. Did a couple of TED Talks. Speaking internationally now, I mean, more and more so. But yeah, it's been really kind of an incredible run this last 4 or 5 years.
That is awesome. So tell me, because there's so many, like I said, you got so many different hats. And for the real man side of things, what is it that gives you that energy? I mean, you talk about speaking on stage, 200 days. That's a lot of days. I mean, that's a lot of time. That's a lot of travel. That's, how do you balance? So maybe that's a different question, is how do you balance that as a father, as a business owner, as a dude who gets energy from sewing into other people. Where does that balance and that shift come from of spending that much time pouring and serving and sharing a story and sharing those little nuggets with people?
Yeah, I love the word discipleship for that
Mm.
reason. I feel like I've been poured into in various ways over the course of my life, sometimes more, sometimes less. I look back to my own life. Really, I kind of grew up without my dad in my life, and I always wondered. I was like, what is that like? To have that father figure um, show you how to shave, right? Like, tell you about girls. Like lead by example. Leading
Right,
a family.
right.
What does love between a man and a woman look like? A man and children. What does that even look like? I didn't have that reference point. And I had a really powerful experience when I was, between the ages of 15 and 16, that kind of shaped the rest of what that kind of looked like. We'll dive into it, I have no doubt. But for me, it's like, I feel like I have a responsibility. I feel like that's my God-given gift to have gone through a lot of crap, like the
Mm-hmm.
hard stuff and the great stuff, so that I can show other people what that looks like. And so, when it comes time to it, like, you wake up at 4 a.m., you slam a quick protein coffee. That's my go-to in the morning. And you hit the airport, for a couple of hours, and then the layover for an hour. And then, you finally get there at 7 p.m., to the hotel, and you check in, you kind of relax, but you really don't. You're going over your notes for the next morning. You show up early, you connect, you are putting out a lot of energy. And then 5 hours later, you're speaking on stage for an hour and a half and giving it even more. And
Mm-hmm.
then connecting with everyone afterwards, and all the conversations and the business side of what that looks like. And your girlfriend wasn't able to make it. So it's just kind of you, and you're just kind of, you get a lot of solo time, even though you're in front of a lot of people. That takes a lot. It really does. And that's just one event, plus the travel back and the follow-up after, all the stuff. And for me, it's like, it's not work so much as it's like, it's my privilege to be able to do those things. I feel like I've been sewn into, and now it's my opportunity to sow and sow and sow. And so the energy, man, for me, it comes from just staying connected to God, to community, to just the other people that are in my life that are also moving forward. Like, for example, my girlfriend, just staying connected. And then it's like, all that stuff doesn't matter. Like, yeah, you could easily get burnt out. I'm tired, but not if it's what you're meant to do. I believe you'll have those ups and downs. That's what life is. We're still human. But man, the energy, like doing this, and then I've got another podcast after this one. I've got two meetings after that, a phone call, a birthday party, a 2-hour gym session. I'll be home probably about midnight, and I'll do it over again tomorrow. You
Oh,
know,
man.
that's what it is. But it's amazing to be able to do that. But that's kind of where it comes from. It's just all these things, like this nice little soup of things. Plus staying active. I go to the gym. I try to keep my butt in the gym, get some cardio in, because otherwise I'd only be doing biceps. So yeah, no, all of it combined, man. It's a full circle of things that goes into this, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to get into some of the mentors that have poured into your life, but kind of back to the speaking just a little bit more. As you're on these stages, now I'm sure you're giving business talks, you're giving sales talks, you're giving coaching. I mean, you have a lot of specific themes, but I'm sure as you're out there and you're looking in the eyeballs of people who are watching you speak, and even just your past event, the unlikely event that you just had over New Year's, you can see in people's eyes desperation. You can see hurt, and you can see as you were speaking when people are like thirsty and needing what you're saying. Have you found any kind of consistent themes or topics that as soon as you start, you know that the audience is moving up in their seat and they're going to sit up a little bit straighter and their notepads are going a little bit more furious, that this is what they're hungry for, that this is what, maybe men in general, but men and women, we both hunger and thirst for certain things in life. What have you seen that when this topic starts flowing out of my lips, I've got their attention and I'm now pouring directly into a cup?
Yes, great question. So I'll tell you this much. It's almost never the business side of things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, business for me, external stuff, business, physical bodies, our relationships, our energy levels, all of these things external are a reflection of something else, something that's on the internal. And I've recognized that for a while. And so, I think it's really important to talk to humans first, because it doesn't matter if you have the perfect business strategy. It doesn't matter if, you wanted me to talk about, the business side to being an entrepreneur. It doesn't matter if you want me to talk about online courses or whatever. None of those things will work if you can't drive the ship.
Right.
And so when I start talking about human things, like real things, that's when things shift. I could be in a room of 7-figure plus CEOs. And when I start talking about the real stuff of life, the stuff that they brought into the boardroom from earlier that morning, or that thing from last night, or the thing that they've been struggling with for the last year and they haven't told anybody about. When we start talking about that stuff and I relate it with my own stories, that's when the eyeballs, that's when we get the tears a little bit. That's where things are really affected. It's the human stuff, man. It always tends to be, because you can take all the notes, man. We can jam about business all we want. But again, if we don't have the energy level, or if we're dealing with depression or anxiety, if we're constantly comparing ourselves to everyone else, if we're fill in the blank to whatever that stuff really looks like, that's that everything else is going to be a struggle to get through. And so I like going into that stuff. That's the real stuff, man. When I talk about depression, when I talk about my divorce, when I talk about suicidal ideations, when I start talking about entrepreneurial depression, when I start talking about what it's like to go through that divorce transition, being a dad, not now having the identity of being, the family guy, or leaving my consultant position and not having an identity, and what that led to in my personal life and my professional life. When I get into the details of that, we get some eyeballs. We get some people that they start to light up. And the craziest thing, I'll put this little tic tac in there. I just recently I've been really open about certain pieces of my past that I haven't been before. And I felt compelled to start sharing, like, just fully what these things look like. I had to put in the work first. That's why I wasn't ready. I put in the work and I'm ready, and I started sharing these things. And at Unlikely, I went into depth on some things in my past and why it was so important that I shared it, and what that's led to in my personal life and my professional life. And it wasn't tough, but it was a little scary. Like, how are people going to respond to this?
Yes.
What are they going to think about me? Like, all the things, right? I was prepped for it, but it still happened. And out of the 80 some people that were there, 2 different people came up and said, Michael, like, I have a similar story. It's crazy that you shared that, because I have a similar story. And it blew my mind, how relevant this actually was. And the lessons and the stories, the takeaways from those things resonated with a lot more people. And so it was just really cool. I just love diving into that real stuff, because us as men, like, we're the provider, we're the head of the household, we're all these things, but it's hard to do all of the things perfectly all of the time. So for me, I just like to get around good people. That's why I was pumped to be here. So I knew we would be talking about some real stuff with some real people. And that's important to me. I know that that's where the change can be affected from.
Yeah, you hit on a couple things that brought some ideas to my head. And one of the things I want to make sure everybody that's listening or watching understands is we attend business conferences. We think we're going for business, and we think we're going for this skill set, or we're going to find this nugget that's going to catapult us and it's going to launch us into that next realm and that next stage. But one of the things, and that can be awesome and that can happen, but until you deal with the internal stuff, that nugget is just going to sit there and rot like an apple in a basket that never gets brought into the house. It's just so important. One of my favorite quotes is by Viktor Frankl. I'm sure you've read the book, Man's Search for Meaning.
Sure.
He says, men are not searching for pleasure. They're searching for meaning. When they can't find meaning, they drug themselves with pleasure. And ways that we distract ourselves when we haven't found that thing, that purpose. And so what Michael's talking about here is really diving into the people side of things. But until you deal with that, the quote unquote meaning, the quote unquote thing that you're trying to do, the how is irrelevant. Until you figure out on the inside what's actually going on and fix that stuff first, the how of how you express or pursue that meaning, that purpose, it's not going to go the way you're hoping it's going to go, because you're drugging yourself. That's becoming your distraction. When your purpose is now your drug and you're now the thing that you're chasing, when you haven't fixed the internal side of things, it's just not going to go. One of the reasons I like your Unlikely event, I was actually in San Francisco over a crossover. I was actually very much considering going to your event for this, just because of the realness and the person face to face. I don't like large business conferences because it just becomes this hype rally of rah, rah, rah. We're just supporting whoever's on stage and we're just totally stoked. Me personally, I prefer going to a conference where I'm sitting on a couch and there's no loafers and there's no we're just real. We're here. And this is why I do my events in the woods and why we go out on backpacking trips. And it's because I'm not there to teach you something you don't already know. And I'm sure you can relate to this. You're not actually teaching somebody something new. You're helping them discover what's already that they're seeing, what's already inside. And so we're helping people through real relationships. And by actually saying, hey, I'm going to look you in the eyes, dude, and I'm going to put my arm around you and I'm going to help you get this thing out that is just choking the life out of you because it's stuck inside. Let's remove this piece and help you realize that it's there in the first place. And so it's refreshing to hear the similar approach of, yeah, you can speak to CEOs, 7-figure, 8-figure, 9-figure people, and they still deal with the same garbage that you and I deal with. And they hide it even more than you and I deal with. They put on this armor and they pretend that it's all nice and shiny and everybody looks good, but then you find those little chinks and you find those little holes in the armor. It's like, hey, this is your weak spot, man. This is where it's going down. And so it's very, like I said, refreshing to hear, the realness is what we're focused on, because so much of what we see on social media, so much of what you see, the LinkedIn profiles, it's all about business. It's all about my skills. It's all about what I can teach you, but not necessarily help you grow.
100%. 100%. I think it bears repeating that if you're listening to this and you're like, wow, that sounds like that might be me. You might be raising your hand, right? Just know that is everyone. And everyone, if we want to bring a little bit of this faith piece in to this conversation, I always look at it as like when we isolate ourselves, when we are distracted by some of those, the fillers, the pleasure, the trips, the food, the sex, the drugs, the money, the other stuff, the fillers that are taking us away from that vision that we have. That's not coming from the light side of that source, right? All of those things are meant to be distractions for you, and everyone goes through those things because we are human. Everyone experiences those things. Doesn't matter the strength level that you're at right now. You might be out, and some of those things are getting in. You might be full, and it's just like bink, 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 hitting the armor. And you're good, but either way, it's still there. It still happens. It's still in this world. And this is why I think it's really important to have these kinds of conversations, because now we have a little bit more awareness, like, wow, everyone goes through this. Even Mitch, even Michael, even fill in the blank with somebody that you follow online or like somebody that you have a lot of respect for. Everyone goes through these things. And in the business world, one of the things that the symptom is that it's like feast or famine. 1 week, 1 month, 1 year, we're really good. The next, not so much. And it's hard to navigate that stuff. And again, that comes from some of the functionality of the business. Like if we market a ton and we get a ton of clients, well, our marketing goes down while we're doing the work. And then we don't have clients when we're done, so we have to market again. And but that's also a symptom of other things, right? It's a symptom that whatever is pushing that marketing, usually a human, is also doing those things in life. It's usually the exact same thing, whether we know it or not. And so, just having that conversation, just knowing that, like, hey, we're two regular dudes and we go through this stuff, I think is important, because then from that awareness, we have a little bit more control, a little bit more understanding, a little bit more clarity so that we can do something about it.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so when we're looking at our life, maybe financially you're doing really well, but emotionally you're numb. Like it doesn't matter. Like nothing bothers, nothing gets to you. You even now are conscious of the fact it's like, yeah, that should have bothered me. Like, even though on the outside, that argument with my wife, my girlfriend, my fiance, my significant other, my whatever, like I just kept it so cold. Although I really love this person, I want to be there, or in business, even, when things are kind of crashing over here, uh, and we're not really paying attention, we're just kind of looking the other way, or, physically, if it's like, yeah, I used to be in really great shape. When was that? Oh, 30 years ago or whatever, it's like, what there's always something we can be looking at here, and it's not in a pursuit of perfection, but I have a real love for the word excellence. I think as I pursue that, everything else gets better. It's not for show. It's not so that I can look a certain way or be perceived a certain way. That's a fringe that does happen, but it's for me. It's like, I know that there's so much more. I've always known it. And this is why I love, Mitch, that you take people into the wilderness. That's cool. Like what we've been talking about that a couple times. And I'm just like, that's so freaking rad to just go. And like, for me, this is where the city boy comes out. Cause it's like, do we have to fish? Do we have to like I can hook a worm. That's brutal enough. Right. But when I catch that fish, holy crap, now I got to touch it. Oh boy, that's going to be rough. For me, that's rough, and like those are the kinds of things I get to deal with. And it all comes out right there in the wilderness, right? Real time, and so it's cool. It's cool to see that you're doing something about this, not just having this conversation is really useful, but then the next step is, what do we do about it?
Mm-hmm.
Now that we have the awareness, what are we going to do about it? How do we put it into practice? Here's a little takeaway, and then I'll stop talking. One of the coolest lessons I've learned is, it actually came from a pastor. He was like, I grew up atheist. I didn't, religion wasn't for me. I didn't want any of that. And then I started to learn more about the people that were leading these churches, and they had really cool things going on in their life. Again, still human, but still, I saw a quality there. I needed friends, I needed people, and they had a community of these amazing people. And so I thought, wow, well, if that guy can do this, if he can lead a church like this, I wonder if I could do this, And he didn't want to learn from the pastor. He wanted to learn like the pastor.
Right.
That person had learned how to do a lot of these things, how to be in front of people, how to really love, how to teach, how to be an effective pastor. And he wanted to learn like that person. He wanted to be able to recreate the result. And, for me, something that has been really, really important is learning like the people that have the results. And one of the things, because I've been able to connect with a lot of people, especially just from speaking, not only that, but like the 5-Figure Workweek community now has 3,500 people in there, and there's amazing, amazing people. One of the biggest factors in people's success that I've seen is the speed at which they can implement a new idea, or, a new to them idea. So for me, if I learn something, I'm looking at not, oh gosh, I can't wait till that it becomes useful. I make it useful immediately within a minute or two. So if I learn, about the Dunning-Kruger effect. Okay, so the Dunning-Kruger effect is where we have, we believe we're better than we are, and that can lead to a lot of things. But ultimately, it highlights the fact that we have the inability to see our disabilities.
Right.
And so because of that, we can't see that, so we must be amazing. Well, that can lead to a lot of problems, if you can imagine. And so when I learned about this phrase, like literally within minutes, I'm like, okay, first of all, how do I apply that to my life? how could I potentially see my weak spots, and really see them? Because if I can't see them, how can I possibly see them? So the effect of like, when you're inside the jar, you can't see the label. You know what I mean? When you're
Right.
in it, you can't see it. So that's where now it made sense for me to hire a mentor that can dissect my life and be able to see some of those things, and I'm looking at, within minutes, reaching out to my good friend Matt, who is a phenomenal mentor, saying, Matt, now it's time for us to work together. This is why we've been in each other's lives, and within minutes having that relationship solidified, and it's just from learning that one phrase and seeing, how does it apply? How can I apply it right now? And so learning and applying, like, just that quick, like making it an actual practice, not like, oh, Dunning-Kruger, maybe I'll Google that sometime. Maybe at some point I'm going to learn something about you can't see what you can't see. You don't know what you don't know. Wow. I hope that comes about. No, instead of hoping, we do action. So anyway, that's the last little point, but learning quickly and applying even faster, implementing, is a game changer. And so you're doing that by bringing dudes into the wilderness. So that's amazing.
Yeah. And you've said so many things I want to like dive into. There's so many rabbit holes ahead of me right now. But one of the things one of my earliest mentors always told me, and it stuck with me, is excellence is the standard, grace is the word. Excellence is always what you're striving for. So I love that you use the word excellence, because that's been a driving force, like kind of a rudder in my life of, am I striving for excellence? I'm not striving necessarily for perfection, but am I trying to do things absolute best that I can do them, and not half-ass it, not kind of go down that road, but understanding what I don't see, those things that you just talked about, my weaknesses, that I need grace to actually get to that point, and that you need to be able to not beat yourself up and have to start over. So I always like to use mountains and hiking and trails and outdoor analogies. But if you're going to hike to the top of a mountain, there's a lot that you're not going to know about until you're on the mountain. When you're climbing, you're not going to know where you're going to have to sidestep. You're not going to know where a tree fell down over the path that you thought was perfect. And now you got to figure out a new way. You can't plan for that. There's no amount of preparation that is going to do it. It's implementation. It's not until I'm on the actual trail that I'm going to see and learn what I need to see and learn to be able to reach the top. And not everybody has to take the same trail. So don't try and copycat. Don't try and be. You have to be you. You have to realize your strengths, your weaknesses. Mentors help you do that. I love that you have that kind of thing. And it's just a different, real kind of area for mentors to be able to walk in and say, hey, this is something that I can see in your life. And one of the, I've started this new venture. For those of you who don't know, I'm like pastoring a church now here in Colorado Springs. And I went to a conference. It was a church conference last summer. And one of the speakers, she got up there and she was talking, and she asked, who can we tell on you to? Who do you have in your life that when you're not acting right, we can call them and you're accountable enough to them, that you have submitted enough to this person that we can say, hey, Michael's kind of going off the wall. Can you get him back in line? He's not going to listen to me. I don't have that authority. He has not granted me that submission, that position to say, hey, bonehead, you're not doing things right. But who do you have in your life that I can tell on you to? I'm going to be the snitch when you're going to hurt yourself and I can see that you're heading down the wrong way. Where's your mentor? Where's that person? Who are you in submission to in your life? And for me, I have business mentors. I have spiritual mentors. I have really good friends that I have come to and said, hey, if you see me acting like a bonehead, if I'm making some comments to my wife that just are not in line and outside of my character, call me on it. I don't want to wait till my course correction needs to be a 90 degree, 180 degree. I'd rather it be that 1 degree back, catch it quickly. So we're not going down this trail making so many wrong mistakes. And in the outdoors world, like you talked about in the wilderness, if I'm not on trail, if I'm bushwhacking because I think I know what I'm doing and I'm off, I can get very lost and I can get very stranded and I can end up search and rescue can't find you because you're so lost, because it just doesn't make sense that you should be where you are. That can happen so quickly in your life if you don't have somebody who can help push you back, who can lovingly tell you, lovingly kick you in the pants if you need it, put their arm around you other times when you need it. But it's so crucial to have these different types of mentors and different voices, because if I just had one person in my life telling me what to do, then I'm kind of becoming a clone. I'm taking on their thought processes. I'm learning the way that they're thinking, and you become more like them than you actually realize. And so having these multiple mentors in your life and I'm sure you can share this experience. I'm sure you have more than one business person, more than one person in your life that you go to. Do you have somebody, I'll kind of go backwards a little bit, that started that path for you, that made you realize, I do need somebody to kick my pants to help keep me in line?
Yeah, every single day of my existence kind of gives me that clue. If I'm really looking back at it, it was when I was 19 years old. I had just left college. I was 2 years in. I realized I wasn't going to be a math teacher, which is what I was going to school for.
Wow,
And
I can't even imagine that now.
I know, I'm like, all right, kids, here's some math for you. And like, but here's what I learned though from going to school. Quick side story is that I'm great at math, actually. I'm really great at teaching math, but that wasn't the thing. That wasn't the path. The lesson underneath that is that here's a complex differential equation, and now I can explain this to the student that didn't quite get it in class. Taking the complex and breaking it down into something simple. Taking something like starting your own business, becoming a coach or a speaker, using all your knowledge and experience from the last 25 years of your life or 34 years of your life, whatever, and putting that into an actual thriving business. That is very difficult for a lot of people. Yet for me, that I've done that for the last 16 years. And so now I can really easily explain it and implement as quickly as possible with my clients. That was my move. And the way that it kind of came about was when I was 19, I met a gentleman who at the time was in his early 40s. And he had this product that he had been building, and he was trying to sell it through this one store. And it clicked that while I don't know anything really about business, while I don't understand how to make the products that you're making, I know that we can get it out to more people, right? And so we started to build a relationship, a friendship first, and within months, it was clear that we needed to do this together. And I like to think even now, this is again 16 years later. I'm 35, just turned 35 in December. When I look at the progression of how that business grew and was eventually sold, I like to think that he learned from me as well. But I learned a lot by seeing how this person operated in his life, seeing how he treated his wife, seeing how he loved her, seeing how he led me inside the business that he had created, seeing his relationships with other men, his friends. And in a lot of ways, the 4 years that we worked together, he was a true mentor and friend to me. And that really kind of set me off in this line of thought, like, wow, okay, so maybe having somebody that has more experience around you in this area is really important. But one big distinction that I learned was that he couldn't be my mentor for everything. That would be a copycat, and nothing wrong with that. His life was fine, but he wasn't also the person that was going to teach me about, a multitude of things. And so I had to get really clear as an individual, as a man, as a person, on where my strengths were and where I needed some guidance, where I needed some help. The way that my brain works is that I'm not trying to be excellent at everything that I do. That's not true. Everything that I do, I pursue excellence in. But that doesn't mean that I need to be the best crocheter, right? It doesn't mean that I need to, fill in the blank with a lot of things I shouldn't be spending time on. I don't necessarily need mentors for those things. When I break down my life, my goals, and I see that if I'm going to achieve this goal, I need to be these four things. These four things need to be insanely, excellent. And number 4 is like 50%. That's where I find a mentor. That's where I find a coach or a resource to supplement. That becomes very specific. Because otherwise, dude, I've hired a lot of people, and not all of them were a necessity. Not all of them worked out because I didn't really have the need. You know what I mean? So when we have clarity on all these things, where we're going in life, in business, whatever it is that we're pursuing, and when we really break it down, we need to be better at time management, or we need to physically get in shape, better nutrition, whatever. when we start to break it down, like, oh my gosh, if I'm going to speak 40 times this year, I might need some physical energy, and that's not what I'm not good. Like I eat the donuts in the morning. I don't exercise. Okay, so now I know where I need to focus, and therefore the resource I need to bring in. So anyway, I was 19 years old when I kind of started to understand mentorship and how important it was to get around those types of people. And man, since then, last 16 years have been awesome. Looking at it that way, as all of these external things are resources to help me pursue that excellence I'm looking for.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know for me, it was early on in like grade school. And
Wow.
you mentioned a story about, home life, father. My dad and I, we didn't get along real well. It was just constant strife. 5 kids. I've got 2 older, 2 younger. I'm the exact middle. For whatever reason, he and I just did not jive until I was very much older into adult life. And I had a teacher in school, and he just believed in me. He saw potential. He didn't see a smackhead kid. He didn't see a goofball. He didn't see somebody who didn't take life seriously. He saw something else, and he would speak that into me, and he would call and set a standard for me and challenge me to be a better person, but not in like a disciplinarian way where this is demanded of you. It's like, hey, you have potential to reach this.
Yeah.
And it was something that has stuck with me. I don't know if he ever listens to this, but Mr. Versteinen was his name. He was just an awesome teacher, and it kind of grew with me. And so I met him when I was in like grade school. He actually we said I play soccer. Every kid played soccer when they were little. He was one of the assistant soccer coaches. 2 of his boys I played soccer with. And then I had him as a high school teacher also. And it kept speaking life into me. He knew who I was. He saw that recipe. He saw that puzzle piece, and he knew it wasn't like everybody else. So he didn't try to be like anybody else. He was really that kind of thing. And that kind of started my path down mentorship of finding people. And it kind of went. So I went through high school, and I started running a Godfather's Pizza in Albuquerque. And the owner could see things in me, and he started to groom me to take over this company. His wife wasn't happy in Albuquerque anymore. They wanted to move away. And I had this path at 19 years old where I was going to become a franchise owner of Godfather's Pizza. And the date kept getting pushed. And it's like, you're not going to leave, dude. And I was impatient. And so I left. And then the dude I trained, he ended up leaving the company too. So it was a lesson in patience for me there. But again, people can recognize things in you and call you to that higher standard and call you to that next thing. And that's so crucial, at least in my world, of what mentorship, coaching, and I know everybody has different terminology or definitions of what they want to call that. But as you were talking, I wrote down a note that it's kind of been a theme over and over again of a discipleship kind of an experience versus an academic kind of an experience. Being able to witness how people live. So discipleship for me, I have Christian faith, grow in a church. I bring people into my home, and I want them to see how I treat my wife. And I want them to see how I have dinner with my kids and what movie night looks like when we got popcorn and we got Star Wars on the movie theater. I can sit there and preach and teach and go till I'm blue in the face of the principles of how this should be done. But when I invite you into my home and I show you what it looks like, there's a whole different level of like experience that happens. And so much of today, of what I see, at least in the online space, is coaches try to be everything to everyone. And I think that's why so many coaches fail, is because I have now taken on the burden of responsibility of fixing your entire life. You want to talk about this? We're going to talk about this. You want to talk about that? We're going to go down that rabbit hole. We're going to do, and not knowing what value that you bring, like what you're talking about. Understanding these are my strengths. These are my weaknesses. I can help you with this thing. And if this thing is something that you're needing, then we're a fit. That we can doing that kind of thing. But when you try to become, maybe they try to become a pastor to everybody's life versus a coach. I'm just going to handle your whole world. You got a problem, bring it to me and we're going to talk about it. And I think it's a very dangerous, slippery slope to position yourself in that way, or to see somebody as that way. If you're looking for somebody to fix everything in your life, one person, that should be Jesus. Outside of that, they're going to fail and they're going to fall and they're going to do these other different things in their lives. So be careful as you are realizing, hey, as a man, I need other men to show me the way. And I really wish this would come back, but that whole master apprentice kind of relationship is seeing somebody that can teach you and take you under their wings and show you a path for a certain thing so you can become excellent at it. And now you go teach somebody else and you keep that going. but seek out people who are quote unquote masters in areas of your lives where you're seeing the weakness that you need that growth. Like Michael was just talking about, if you've got a 50% area, that's where you kind of need some help. John Maxwell, I love him. I've seen him speak a few times. And one of the things that he talks about is, if I'm a 7 or 8, then I'm going to strive to become a 10. And I'm going to focus on that hard, and I'm going to make that up into excellence. If I'm a 2 or a 3, if I put in a ton of effort to get to a 4 or 5, is that really beneficial? I'm going to stay away from that area. I'm going to realize that that's an area that I'm weak at, and I'm going to let somebody else handle that arena.
Crocheting.
I'm not going to throw in. Yeah, and it's funny you say that, because my wife is like the crochet queen.
That's awesome.
All
I'd
the
like
baby
to hire her
Yodas,
for
like
her services.
she is amazing at crocheting. But realizing, is it beneficial for me to spend time and effort to go from a 3 to a 5, or should I go from a 7 to a 9 or a 10? Choosing where to focus and finding people to fit those roles, not the one size fits all coach who can promise to fix your whole life. And so I've had bad coaches, I've had really good coaches, and you learn from both. And I'm sure we could sit here and talk about stories of some of our crazy coaches in the past. And it's like got this burning desire in me now to make sure to preach that people are more important than your program. I don't care how awesome you think your program is. It's the people who put it there. And 100%. Your program has to be malleable to the people. There needs to be structure and order and all that kind of stuff. But if your program is the thing and the people are just a byproduct, then you've lost me. I'm checking out. I'm moving on to somewhere else.
100%. I love that conversation because, especially as men, we like to be the providers. I think in this day and age, there's not, I don't think there's anything wrong with a strong woman doing her thing. And I also think there's nothing wrong with a man making sure that he keeps his manhood intact, in the sense of like having that purpose, having that thing that drives you. Because man, can we lose ourselves in relationships? Can we lose ourselves in the idea of like just chilling, like taking a year off, like we're just relaxing? And of course we can. But here's the thing, like we all have these really amazing gifts. I've met a lot of people, and the cool thing is like not everybody's gift is business. Not everybody's gift is crocheting. Not everybody, like everyone has a different set of gifts. And here's the thing I know is that because we're human, a lot of us also struggle with those gifts that we've been given. Meaning, for me, business happens to be my thing, specifically online. I love it. I understand it. It's second nature to me. And now I can help other people to do that. But there's also a time in my life where I wanted to be a celebrity. You're right. Like I wanted to be the star. I wanted to be the person in movies. I wanted to be that person too, and starting your own business isn't the most glamorous, and I think, we can, that's just my thing. Like, I was just like, wow, like, I feel like I have all these cool things I could do. And business, it's just easy. I'm good at it. I can help people. Yeah. But like, what about like doing something like movies or something? Could I be in a magazine? I want to be James Bond. How do I make that happen? And like, so for me, I had a little struggle with that, because it's like, I'm going to be working my ass off for 10 years before anybody knows I've been working, and, in Facebook memories, I just got a chance to look at that this morning. And this is from 2008. So now 12 years ago, I saw, this is going to sound a little cheesy. So 12 years ago, I was like 23. I just turned 23. And I remember I was dating this girl. It was awesome. But, I was looking back at something that she had posted on my wall. It was like something lovey-dovey. Like she was like 19. I was 23. I was a young entrepreneur guy, just, 4 years out of college, just kind of doing my thing. And she said, I don't remember what she said. It was like some like, I love you so much forever and ever, whatever it was. And then I went and looked back at our messages from that time frame. I was doing a little reminisce, I wanted to see what she was up to. I hadn't seen her, thought about her in a long time. And the conversation, and now this is really interesting because this can be you right now. This could have been you in the past, but there's a lot of love there. And looking at our conversation, there was some real talk about me working so much. It was like literally the conversation was like, I respect the fact that you want to get your dream out there and you want to move this thing. And I do understand that, but like, what about me? And at the time I had a lot of pride, and I was like, well, gosh, I'm sorry, but if me working my full-time job so that I can support my passion project, working 9 to 5 and then working 7 to 2 a.m., if that's not going to work for you, well, that's something that's really important for me. And well, gosh, like maybe this relationship isn't what we're looking for. It was just really fascinating. And I'm sure everyone that heard just that little piece of the puzzle took something differently away. But like for us, it was like lovey-dovey on the outside. It was nothing but love on the backside either. We were madly in love, 23 and 19 years old. And at the same time, it was just really interesting that I still, even then, internally had a struggle. Like, shoot, should I just not work so much and spend my time here? Or should I be hustling this much? And it was even then, like, even now, like, I'm going to tell you what, like, I don't sleep a whole lot. I love sleep. I don't deprive my body of sleep. I don't need a whole lot of sleep, turns out. And I love going. I love doing things like this. I love connecting with people. I love speaking. I love traveling. I love hanging out with my daughter. I love traveling to see my family. I love, my me time. Like, I love all these things. And I think about it. I'm like, in my relationship now, we were talking a little bit before we were recording, the relationship's going really well. We push each other really well, in the right
Mm-hmm.
directions. We have open communication about the things that aren't working or could potentially be something we need to look at. And it's really healthy. And one of those things is like, we haven't really, like, we've had a couple of date nights over the last couple of weeks, but I've been focused really intently on following up from my event, leading up to another big event, speaking 3 or 4 times in the interim, hanging out with my daughter. I also play drums and sing at my church. I also lead an entrepreneurship group that stemmed off of the church, which is kind of a big deal around here. And so there's a lot on my plate, and so this is the real-time stuff where it's like, man, like, how do I do it all?
That's a good question, because I am a firm advocate. The word hustle is one of those words that gets under my skin because of just how I define it. I am a firm believer that you don't wait to live your life that you're building until you get there, quote unquote.
Mm.
When we're recording this, we just got the news yesterday of Kobe Bryant crashing in the helicopter. And it's one of those things that I know he has lived his life to the utmost excellence, that he would not have regrets. Obviously, he has goals and different things that he wants to, but what he's accomplished thus far, there's not like, oh, I wasted time. I don't think that would have gone through his mind. I don't know him. I've never met the man, anything like that, but just the level of excellence that he dedicated to his life did include a lot of things. That's why he had a helicopter. Sitting in the car was a waste of time. Like, helicopter gets you to point A, point B much quicker. And so I am a firm believer of living life now as you're dreaming to build it at the level you're at now. Obviously, it's going to grow. Things are going to get better. Things are going to change. You'll have more resources, more time, more money, whatever it is. But goals are one of those phantom things. We set goals to give us directions, but goals, by the time you get there, when you're really close to achieving it, you've already moved that marker down the road. So your first goal disappears. You're going to blow past it. You're going to do it. But an actual goal is something that you should never actually hit. When you get there, you should have already moved your focus and shifted your eyes to the next goal that you couldn't see. So again, back to hiking, back to mountain climbing. Here in Colorado, we got 14ers all over the place. I think there's 58 of them here in the state. There's things called false summits where you think that's the top and you think that's where I'm headed. And when you get there, you realize, nope, it's still up there and there's more work to be done. But you've come so far, you're not turning around and going back and being, oh, I was wrong. I'm going to go and start climbing a different mountain because this mountain is no good. No, you just keep pushing on. You put in that extra work, and sometimes that last 1,000 yards is the hardest of the whole thing. But having where your goal is shifting constantly, what you think is the goal oftentimes is not the goal. It's just going to get you closer to where you're going to be, because you're going to change, you're going to evolve, you're going to learn more, you're going to grow more, You're going to understand more. You're going to get hurt. There's blood, sweat, and tears, all those different things that come with actually being out on the trail. And so it's important to kind of have these things and these markers, but don't get so consumed that only am I going to train, am I going to exercise, and I'm so focused on climbing this 14er that I forget my life. That when I come down off that mountain, my wife has moved out. My kids don't even recognize me anymore. I remember I had a moment in my career prior to going in entrepreneurship where I was just in sales, and it was tons and tons and tons and tons of hours. And my kids would like ask, Dad, when do you ever get a day off? It's like I kiss them goodbye in the morning, they're asleep. I kiss them goodnight when I got home, they're asleep. It's like I realized it would go like almost week at a time where I'm like, I haven't even seen eyeballs. Like, this is not healthy. This is not something that's sustainable. I can't, quote unquote, hustle my way into an awesome family just because there's money in the bank account, just because I'm getting success and accolades and rewards and the attaboys at work. And then your kids are like, what's your name again? Do you still live here? I thought you moved out. That you don't want those kinds of things where you are working so hard to build for your family that you lose your family in the process.
Boom.
And so it's like,
put that on a t-shirt, man. Put that on a t-shirt. That last line was fire. And I resonate with that. I think a lot of us dudes do. I lived that. So I totally get it, and here's the crazy thing, there's so much power in what we call identity, knowing ourselves, knowing who we really are. And when we're in discord like that, it's hard to really know that, even if you have your family and you're leaving for work before they're awake and you're back in before, after they're in bed already, we can start to lose that identity. Like, am I really a dad? Like, am I really doing what I can? Is this what I dreamt for my life, and for my family's life? And am I leading them well? And I think for a lot of us that pushes us towards entrepreneurship or starting our side hustle or doing that extra step, because that means freedom. That means that we get to do those things. And here's a little quick story for me about communication. I want to say is really the term. But 6 years ago now, when I left the consulting world and started really focusing on coaches, entrepreneurs, speakers, I didn't communicate that well to my now ex-wife about what I was doing, because, the contrast was like this: working 60, 70, 80 hours a week, plenty of money in the bank account, and then not, now I'm focused on, now I can do my own thing. And yeah, I would like to just take a month and just relax for a little bit. I really would. I've been working since, I was 14, and, it'd be nice now that I'm 29 to be able to just take a breath, and for me at the time, that's kind of what I did for a good solid month. And, there's a stark difference in my relationships externally, in my energy levels, and all those things. And again, this is coming from experience. That was just a reflection of me at the time. I was done. I was burnt out. I needed to come up for air for a second. And, it's funny when you do that, you become a different person. For me, I just didn't have my identity. Now I was used to being the young hotshot consultant dude that was blowing up these companies. They'd give me the title of intrapreneur. Intrapreneur is somebody that is really attuned at coming into companies and helping them to grow, kind of using an entrepreneurial approach.
Right.
And that was kind of what I'd grown into. And now I kind of lost that identity. I was the family guy, but again, I was kind of checked out. So was I the family guy either? Like, I'm a friendly person, but I didn't have any friends. I was the athlete in high school, but I haven't seen a gym in 2, 3, 4 years probably. So all of these things that I thought I was, now I had the breathing room to realize I wasn't any of those things. And so for me, that plummeted me into a nice little depression. At that point, it was about a year long. And the interesting thing with that is, the way that my former wife started to see me wasn't how I felt like this is where that Dunning-Kruger effect came in. I was a lot better than I was. I'm good. Like, we have money in the bank. Like, why do I have to like work so hard right now? Like, let me just relax. Why don't you appreciate how much I've worked and how much I've provided and. But it's crazy what the flip side of that is now going through that. That year was rough, man. Like, we talked a little bit again before coming on here. This isn't going to be one of those things that I've said over and over, because I have shared this story a lot. But the reality is that I lost track of like all of those pillars. My financial life was depleting. My spiritual life was non-existent or nearly non-existent. My physical body was kind of just wasting away. My relationships, right? Like all of these things were really depleted. And going through an eviction of my apartment after selling off our house and our cars and all the stuff, a year later being evicted from my apartment, that was just an affirmation to myself that, like, yeah, not only have you lost yourself, but you're losing. You're going slowly to zero. And a lot of crazy things would pop in my head, including ending my own life, the suicidal ideations, thinking like, gosh, like who'd miss me really? Like, it's either I keep struggling and then go to zero anyway, or I could just bow out right now. And this is where I think community becomes really important, because for me, I had a ton of gifts. I had a ton of amazing things. I had results that I could look at, I could point at and say, I did those things. Those gifts don't just magically disappear, do they? Like, they're still there, whether we know them or not. And I think God has a funny way of doing things in very unique ways that only we would understand.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny, like you could walk in and I'm like, oh, that's funny. This pen says write it in ink. Now, to me, that doesn't mean anything, carries no significance. But to that one person watching this, they're sitting there with a contract for some big thing, new house, a business, selling some, and they're like, should I sign this or not? And it says write it in ink. Oh my gosh, Michael, this is amazing. And then it's like, God, you little slut. Like, to that one person, it means something. And for me, I had a lot of those little ahas where it was like, okay, I get it. I see it now, and there's no way I could have until this moment. And those are the times that, I can't tell you that it's coming and you believe me. You almost have to go through it. You almost have to experience some of these things yourself before you start to get it. That's why I love, again, like, I'm going to throw this back to you, Mitch, because going up on the mountain, you can read all the inspirational and motivational memes on Instagram. You can read all the quotes, but some of that stuff becomes laughably, impactful when you're up on that mountain. You didn't come this far to come this far. How many times have I seen that on somebody's quote board, on their Instagram, on their Facebook? But then it's like, damn, that tree is in the way. I can't go this way. But like, I've crested all these false summits, and now that is the summit. Am I 75% through? Am I going to turn around? Am I that person? Am I the person that when it kind of gets hard after it's been hard for a long time, do I just give up now? When I'm in the gym, will I do 10 reps of low weights, and that's good enough? Like, am I the person where, the marriage has been dull for a little while, and I know that if I only put in a little bit more, gosh, after putting in so much for so long in every other area, that could potentially be the breakthrough that we've been looking for. If I'm just not sitting here selfishly waiting to get filled up, but if I'm willing to go above and beyond and fill up my partner, could that be the thing that finally changes the dynamic? And so that's why I love where you're going with this whole thing, the wilderness aspect. I mean, you're not gonna move a mountain just by thinking, positively. You're going to overcome that mountain by taking steps, by some, and a lot of times for me, that means having faith. Like, sometimes I'm praying when I'm on that mountain, cause I'm done. Like, I don't know how, like, I should be like, am I even close? Like, I'm looking at the map on the phone, like, okay, I'm only 3/10 of the way through. Like, am I going to make it to the top where the waterfall is and the cool stuff and the view and and like, I got to work my way through that, but you don't learn unless you go through it. And so if you've not been through any of the things that we're talking about here, then great. But keep these thoughts in mind, because as you go through a little bit more life, or as you might hit one of those stumbling blocks, the word community gets you through that stuff. Knowing that you're not alone, knowing that you don't have to touch the stove to know that it's hot. There's a bunch of us, dumb kids out there that would.
We can show you the burns, brother.
We can show you the burns. We can show you the scars, and explicitly tell you what to do and what not to do. But yeah, I love the aspect that you're creating community, wilderness, and just talking about the real stuff. That's what changes lives, for real.
So I want to hit back. You mentioned the identity and the burnout. And this is a big thing that I teach a lot of men about, is because, and it's kind of become its own little speech or spiel, if you will, but your purpose can suck the life out of you. And what I've seen is that a lot of what people, when they hit that burnout level, it's because it's not what they thought it was going to be. And they have taken a talent, they have taken a task, and they've labeled it purpose. And they've taken something that they're really good at and could do with excellence, and they've assumed that's my purpose. And when the purpose is not filling you up, where you can pour and pour and pour and you don't get drained, you actually get life from this thing. If you're having to pour and pour and pour and you're wiped out, that's not purpose. That's talent. Those are tasks. Those are things that you can strive at. And we've all done this in our jobs growing up. Everybody has had a boss that recognized you can do this thing really well, so that's what you get to do. And you may hate it. Like, oh, this thing drives me nuts. Yeah, I can do it, but I get zero joy from this thing. And so there's a dangerous slope of finding, quote unquote, that purpose. And so a big part of our trips, like we talk about, is identity needs to precede purpose. You have to understand who you are at the core, and not just who people have told you are. People can speak things over you throughout your whole life. They can brand you as certain things. My parents told me my whole life, you're not college material. You're not college material. You don't take things too seriously enough. So I never even took my SATs, my ACTs through high school. It was off the board. College was not going to be in my world. I was told from a small age, you're not college material. Why bother? I wanted to be a ski bum for a while. The endless winter. I was going to get a schoolie and live in a bus. And like, my ambitions, because of how people would speak to me, started getting lower and lower and lower and lower. And so it's just a different thing of realizing that you have to strip down. Who is it that I am at the core? Foundational. And for me, and this is what I help guys do, is I help them realize what God says about them, who they are from the foundation, from the creator. And let's build your identity on something that is infallible. That's something that is not an opinion. That's something that can't change with my emotion. Because if I build my identity based on how I'm feeling today or what I'm good at right now, in 5 years, my identity is going to crack and crumble, and I'm going to hit that burnout and realize maybe I'm not what I thought I was. This isn't turning out. It's now sucking the life out of me. It's destroying my health, my relationships, my finances, everything. So with these trips that we do in the woods, and it's kind of funny, but they're designed very specifically. It's a backpacking trip. It's not pulling up in your car and setting up a tent next to the car. You put it all in your pack. You're putting on that weight, and you're hiking. And we go 3 miles up into the camp. And literally all you're focusing, it's designed for a hard reset of your brain. I talk about mental pollution in your mind. There's so many things that we believe that are false. There's so many things that people have spoken that are false. There's so many worries that we have that we're constantly going in a different direction. This mental pollution needs to be emptied out. And when you're hiking on that trail, you're literally focusing on breathing and putting one foot in front of the other. That's it. Now, it's not so strenuous that it's going to wipe you out and then you totally can't make it physically. But by the time you get to camp, you're going to battle so much going through your mind, and you're going to have emptied it out to where when you take that pack off, it's literally and figuratively, you're releasing weight. You feel lighter because now I'm not burdened, and I also don't have 40, 50 pounds on my back as well. Like, there's so many different aspects of it, of this whole trip, of how it's designed is to release those things, to hit the hard reset button, and to make sure that that foundation is correct. That foundation is there so you can build that excellence upon something solid. Biblically, it talks about building your house upon a rock or versus sand. So many people have built their identity on sand just because it's based on things that change, feelings, emotions, words that have been spoken over, something that I happen to be good at. but that's not where the foundation that we're called to build things on. And so it's really cool to kind of see the parallels. And every man goes through these things. Every man has these types of situations where they're battling to figure out, who the heck am I? What am I supposed to do? I just worked my butt off for 10 years to achieve this thing, and now it's falling apart and it's not what I thought it was. Like, don't wait till you find yourself in that position to realize, oh crap. Get mentors in your life. Get people who can say, hey, I can see there's some cracks happening. You got foundation issues. If you buy a house, you get a home inspection. One of the main things they're looking for is foundation. Is this house going to crumble and you owe us a bunch of money for this thing? Like, it's a crucial part is that foundation inspection process of it. But I just want to thank you so much. I'd like to ask, guys, we're wrapping up on time here, but, and this is kind of, I'm hitting you from nowhere because I forgot to mention it ahead of time. So if I'm throwing a curveball, you can call an audible. But testimonies are so powerful. Testimonies don't have to be this crazy hand of God, miraculous moment where the Red Sea parted. But how has, because we've talked about faith, how has God been moving in your life and blowing your mind? Because testimonies build faith in other guys.
Where do I start? Man,
that's a good way.
I got some testimonies. There's a lot of things going on in my world, which I'm super thankful and grateful for. And so I could take this a lot of ways, but I'd say overall, the general theme, because I think that would make more sense to the people that are just kind of getting to know me through your show, is that, going from, depressed, just feeling like I could take it or leave it with this life, to somebody that's pouring back into people. And I already know there's more and more and more and more out there for me. There's kind of a radical shift between me now and me 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Me 6 years ago and me 9 years before that. Me then and when I was a teenager, youngster. And I just want to share the fact that, like, I am a regular dude. This is where it kind of comes full circle. I'm not just some special person with some crazy amount of gifts and talents above and beyond anyone else. I think it's hilarious that I've spent a lot of time on stages, on podcasts, on live videos galore, a lot of content. And I'm not the most polished speaker. I don't come with, my whole thing memorized and I say it 200 times. I come from the space of, like, what do these people need right now, and how do I get it to them? How can I share something powerfully enough so that they can start moving the needle in their life/business? And so I want to make sure that people know, like when we look at some of the coolest, amazing things, sometimes they are just regular. If that's you, where you have your skills, I say it tongue in cheek, right? Like, I'm regular, but so are we all. Like, I have a story, but so we all have a story. Like, I have my own skills, but we all do. That's regular to me. We're all regular people. And when you really look at some things, I mean, Jesus could have been looked at as a regular person, God with skin on, Holy Spirit with skin on, we can look at, like, things like communion. We're talking about wine and bread, two regular things, but with a very deep, significant story and meaning behind it. And I say, as far as testimony goes, man, every single day something really amazing happens. And it could be something as simple as me showing this pen, where it's, it could be as something that simple and regular. So I'd say let's start looking at our lives as every day it's a testimony. Every day it's something amazing. I can go into some specifics. Something very recently, on Friday, this past Friday, today being Monday, we had a pretty big event. It was a first time event for this entrepreneur group called Pathfinders. And it was our first time. There's a team of 4 of us. We're trying to put this thing on at the nicest country club in our state, with 100 of, like, the most influential people in Utah. We flew some people out from San Diego to speak and to just kind of help build the team. And I speak a lot at events. I don't do events. I don't run events. I mean, I had my first event on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, but like that was a different team, different people. And now we had a month to really put this thing together. And here's the testimony. It's like, this is where we know it's out of our hands. We put it out there. We know that we're going to change some lives by just holding this event. And can I tell you, it was phenomenal. Like 100 plus, like we sold out the event and had to figure out how to get more tables into the room, and then sold out the event again, and then had people show up the day up to buy tickets. The speakers were phenomenal. Everything just so smooth, and it shouldn't have been, like it shouldn't have been that smooth, but it was. And so for me, I'm just like, to me, that's a God thing. To me, it's a God thing. We were talking earlier, unfortunately hearing about Kobe, his daughter, and the rest of the passengers on that airplane or on that helicopter, and the fact that you and your daughter are the same age as Kobe and Gianna. In 6 years, my daughter and myself will be the same age as the two of them are now, and we just happen to be rescheduled, by the way, from last week
right.
to today, the day after all this stuff happens. Do you think it's a coincidence? Like there's so many of those little things that if we just took a second to think about, like, why are we on your show right now, not last week?
Yeah.
I was so perplexed, and I was getting a little, like, I'm a big, I love being on time. I love doing things like that. I like keeping my schedule. And for me not to have, like, to be able to get into my own office space, to be able to record this it blew my mind. Like, how does this happen? Anyway, but here we are, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, every day is a testimony. So there's just a little bit, there's so much, there's just so much.
That is awesome, my man. And I have to say, like, I look for genuine, and for most people in the online space, authenticity, genuineness, it's become a buzzword. And the genuine, quote unquote, authenticity has become a soap opera because they're trying to elicit feelings. They're not trying to actually be real. They're trying to, I want to tell you my story and have you feel a certain way about my story. So it's not real anymore. It's turning into the Monday afternoon soap operas that grandma watches when you go visit. And I just love the fact, because you are a regular dude. And it's something that drew me to you really quickly, is because there's a lot within marketers and within the entrepreneur space. There's little circles, and some of the circles are big circles. Some of the circles are covered in a bubble. Some of them just feast on each other, and there's blood everywhere all the time. And it's nice and refreshing to see somebody who's standing on the shore going, why are they fighting? Like, I don't get what's going on over there. Like, we're all okay. Like, it can all be fine. And so I appreciate that about you. I want to, make sure that people find you, that they can experience that for themselves, because it was, for me, night and day. It's like somebody's got a super bright light on, and then somebody over here has got bags and stuff hiding whatever they're trying to do because of all the layers of crap that they're trying to put on top of what they're doing. So I appreciate you being authentic. I appreciate you being a regular dude. And that's my whole goal with these podcasts, is just two dudes talking about life, our stories, our testimonies. How can we share what we've gone through so it can help give somebody else hope, give somebody else some belief, make them realize that they're not as weird as they think they are in their own heads, that, yeah, other people go through the same garbage that you're going through. But how can everybody find you? Drop some links, drop some websites, social platforms.
Yeah.
Lay it out there.
Absolutely, man. I super appreciate that. I try to, this is funny, but not funny, but like what you experienced here, this is how I show up with my girlfriend, with my daughter on stage, talking to my mom, like my best friends, like when I'm with my cat, Gus, like I'm the same dude. And that, to me, I love that, because like you had talked about earlier about burnout, I don't have to experience that when I'm myself all the time, doing all the things I love. So having said that, I would say the best way to connect, specifically if you watch the show and you made it to the end, you're a freaking champion. Let's connect on the social platform of your choice. I love Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Those are the three that I primarily play on. So send me a friend request or a connection request, or follow. But more importantly, send me a message that you liked the show, you wanted to connect. That way we can connect for real. I'm all about real connection. I think that's what we're here for. So make sure you send me a message so that I know where you came from, so we can have a real conversation. But that's it. Other than that, like if you went to my website, you can see that I speak and I'm a coach or, whatever. That's good, but like it's not that relevant to us here. So let's connect for real, and we can build a real relationship on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're an entrepreneur, you're in the marketing space, the 5-Figure Work Week, check out the group, join the group. He puts out all kinds. He's constantly going live. He's constantly sharing. It's not one of those pitch fests where day after day, we're just trying to get you to buy something from you. And so you'll appreciate, it's a breath of fresh air. If you're in the marketing world, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But just, there's other guys out there that are regular dudes that can do life in the regular way, but in an excellent way, which I think is really awesome. So thank you, brother. I appreciate your time. Love doing this. We'll have to get it on for version 2 down the road sometime again too.
Yeah, I'd love to, man. Anytime, for real.
All right, guys. Thank you for listening.
You've been listening to the Wisdom in Wilderness podcast. Real men, real life, real faith. The newest podcast for men with your host, Mitch London. We'll see you next time.